Be interesting hosting a show. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, well, maybe that's better without Mike because it's one less thing to manage.
Yeah, that's true. It's like this is the training course, and then the
Yeah,
real actual driving test is when I have the real mic in. Um,
I think I just need to get like a mute button for him.
I just I just love the fact that it was so off the rails towards the end of the last episode we did that even Mike's like, yeah, nah, take it away from me at least for a bit, at least for a bit.
All right, we're on and everything, so ready to start the show when you are. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right, three, two, one.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Big Week in Gaming podcast. And what do you know? It's been a big week in gaming. I'm Swinny for episode 97 this Sunday, the 25th of September, 2022. So in this week's show, we'll be discussing Zelda, Goldeneye, Fire Emblem. We catch up and chat about all the big news we missed out last week. Grand Theft Auto 6 leaks all over the internet, and even the FBI gets involved. Nvidia revealed their next range of graphics cards you're going to have to sell your firstborn to afford. And the Analogue Pocket finally gets support for Super Nintendo games.
Shut up! Big Wigs on the radio! Shut up! It's Gaming Focused Audio!
Welcome everyone to the Big Week in Gaming podcast. I'm your host for today, Swinny. If you'd like to support the show, we'd love to get you to subscribe to us on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. If you're a mega fan, come join us on the Discord. I definitely need to jump on there, so I need to become a mega fan myself. And all the links in the description below or at bigweekpod.com. So today, joining me is our executive producer, Integot,
Hello.
and nobody else, because Mike is unfortunately unable to make it to our show. And we missed last week, so we figured, well, let's just do a two-man show this week just to make sure, you know, we do catch up, because last week was a pretty big week in gaming.
It was
and
massive.
unfortunately, we couldn't really chat about some of those headlines. So.
And speaking of the Discord, we actually had a guy who. Do you remember? Oh, I should have actually checked this beforehand. Mike reviewed. I was going to say an Aussie game, but then that's pretty.
One Rat Games or One Rat Dylan.
Yeah. But what I find funny about it is how Mike's not even on the Discord.
Well, actually, normally if we get a good shout out, especially from a game dev and a local game dev, we would normally put it in our like little bit of a like updates thing at the start of the show. But because Mike wasn't here, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll bring it up when Mike's back. But that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Again, thankfully he gave the game a pretty decent, decent review.
Hey, we keep it real here. We're not bought by anyone.
But yeah, so I guess the only other thing that I want to mention right at the top of the show is I just want to give a shout out to some good guy developers out there. So I'm currently playing through a game called Astria Ascending. I'm not going to get into it. It's an RPG. It's on Xbox Game Pass, right? The game is leaving Xbox Game Pass on the 30th of the month. So basically, there's only about 5 days left to complete it. And the game's pretty buggy and glitchy in a lot of ways. And yesterday, 6 days before it's meant to leave Game Pass, they updated and patched the game and fixed all the major issues and achievements so people are able to complete it before it leaves Game Pass. So I just want to give a shout out to the developers, Artisan Studios and Dear Villages, the publishers of Astria Ascending. It's great to see developers kind of like help out the community with that stuff. So
Yeah, I think anything like that, or if they, I don't know if that is possible, but if they could do a deal with Microsoft and say, look, just keep it on there for another month while we fix this, you know what I mean? Anything like that, I think is a pretty good thing to do. I know that we're not going to talk about what we're playing. We're going to get straight into the news, but for a teaser for next week, obviously I've been playing Splatoon 3 like crazy.
what a surprise.
I've put 50 hours into that game already.
That's insane. Mike was telling me I was speaking to him the other day. Actually caught up with coffee for him, which is good. You know, something weird like post COVID. Just catching up for a coffee just feels special these days. But anyway,
Yeah.
and he was like, he always saw you on the Switch just playing nothing but Splatoon. So I'm like, okay, he's just banging that out.
Look, like for all the issues with it, it's very good game. It's a very good game. I like, it sounds crazy what I'm about to say, but I just, in a weird way, wish Nintendo didn't make it. I feel like it would be, the mechanics of the game are so good. and everything else with the networking, it just lets it down around it, but you still kind of struggle through it. So, and just briefly, like I've played the Splatfest this weekend. It's meant to have the tricolor battles. They said that they're going to reduce, the one where it's like the 4 people in the middle have to defend the two teams of 2 on either side. And it was super unbalanced. Like the middle team usually lost, right? And they said that, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to reduce the number of times that you see that mode," right? Which kind of annoys me because I want to see that mode, right? That's their solution. It's just not going to pop, right? I spent like 3 hours playing it just today. 0 times it came up, even though I'm selecting that mode. I'm like, that shits me, man. Like, fuck Nintendo, man.
That sucks because that's one of the new things.
Yeah,
about the multiplayer.
Exactly.
And look, I'm sure that it's probably a temporary thing until they work through the rebalancing. I know that stuff's not, you just can't like flip a switch and it's done. But it is like unfortunate that that solution was, let's just not make it show up, as opposed to let's make it balance it, because that was cool. Like that was one of the modes that we tried out, and when I played,
it was cool.
And
it was different. It was different.
It did feel at the time very unfair to the people in the middle.
Yeah, and then also when because stupidly, you play it a few times and then you realize, wait a second, you shouldn't be attacking the other team at all, like, or taking their ink or anything. It's like, wow, this is such a disadvantage being in the middle. It's like incredible. That and for a teaser for next week, been playing Last of Us Part 1.
Oh,
yes.
Mr. Moneybags is buying the big remastered version. And
dude, no, it's a certain birthday that everyone forgot. That game oozes AAA. It's quadruple A. That game is quadruple A. Just like not saying anything about the game, but there's one moment where I was like using a flashlight or something and then turning it off, right? And the game actually prompted me at the bottom saying, the infected can't detect if you've got your flashlight on or off. I'm like, man, this game is like, they've play tested this and they've like just done every little tiny minute detail to figure out stuff like that to like help people. It's crazy. And it's a good game, man. It's a good game.
And this is your first playthrough of any version of that?
I know so little about this game apart from I think 2 things, right? And I started playing it. So this is the first time I've ever touched it. I've avoided spoilers. I skip through podcasts whenever they talk about it. Like the first 10 minutes of the game, I was like, what the hell? I didn't know any of this, right? Like basically the structure even of the game, I didn't actually know. So yeah, it's like, it's a bloody good game. Like I can understand. I'm only like a couple of hours in, but I can totally understand how people can get obsessed about this game and like, best game ever, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I can kind of get it. It's pretty incredible.
The question, do you think that because I know that this game kind of walks a line between like a really crazy remaster versus a remake. It's kind of like it's walking that line, right?
Yeah.
Do you think a game like this should be eligible or highly considered for a Game Awards Game of the Year kind of thing, given the nature of the game?
What I would say is for certain categories, I could accept it. For Game of the Year, no way. Okay. Like negative a million. I think if this is in the category of Game of the Year, I'll be super pissed, right? I think it should be nominated or could be nominated if it's areas where that's what they focused on and worked on, right? Now, I can't remember all the categories, but, you could argue things like art or accessibility. Like, accessibility in this game is crazy. Like, everything. Like, it's actually... I need, like, an accessibility setting for the accessibility settings to make it more manageable. Because it's, like, overwhelming how many options there are. It's insane how many options. Like, I just went, hey, I want the subtitles on. And it's, like... so many options about the subtitles. Like they give you options about just like the context of the game, not just like a simple kind of, like closed caption versus like the actual words. It's like, subtlety, like it's just so many things. So like stuff like that, because that's work. And I don't think that was fully like all the stuff they've got in there in the original game, totally open to that. I think it's insane that people think this should be nominated for Game of the Year. Like that's just farcical. I think you have to be really changing the game for that to count Like as a, you know, like I think Final Fantasy VII is a good example. Like
Yeah.
it's probably changed enough that you could go, yeah, I could put it in Game of the Year again. But not this. This is like beat for beat exactly the same.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. And because I was thinking about that the other day, and I haven't, we didn't go back to check, but a game like your Resident Evil 2 remake is so vastly different. And it's like, to me, it's kind of what you're saying about Final Fantasy VII. Like, I think if the game is completely reached, it's basically a different game, it's like a new adaptation in a way.
Yeah.
And there's no existing art assets that have been reused. They may have like maybe some JPEGs here and there for textures for books or something, you know. But other than that, it's generally basically a new game. So.
And it's kind of a shame. Like, I mean, we weren't meant to talk about it, but it's kind of a shame because I would have been so super open if they had actually remade the game, like change beats of it, you know, shake it up a bit. Because you've always got the original game that is always going to be there. The PS4 version's an amazing way to play that game. So I think it would have been a great opportunity for them to change it, and it would have actually removed all of people's complaints about, you know, like, oh, they just remade it and they're charging so much money for it and stuff like that. Look, I didn't buy it. It was a gift, but man, the game is like so, like, I have not found anything to really complain about the game in terms of how it feels and everything like that. Like, it actually made me compare it to Horizon Forbidden West, and I'm like, that game is so janky compared to this. And you know, when I talk about writing and stuff like that, like, dude, I'm like reading like random notes in the game world because the writing is so good. Like, I kind of, you know I always shit on video game writing, but when writing's good, I'll consume it, man. I'll like absorb it. So I'm like going into the lore of this game. I'm like reading about people's stuff and what they're doing and all this other shit. I'm like, man, I'm super into this game. It's just too intense though. Like, that's the only thing. Like, you know, we're kind of similar in this way. Like, we don't play many horror games, like Resident Evil series. Like, it's like I started playing Resident Evil 7 and I'm like, man, this game's just too much. Like, far out. It's like doing my head in. That's the only thing about this game that, like, man, it's super intense. And it makes me just go, like, do I want to start playing it? Like, it's like foreboding or something. And it's so fucking well paced, the game. Like, I know what it's doing. It's like intense scene, and then it's like, you know, just chill you out for a bit, you know? Like, you'll be walking around doing something, dialogue, you know, background. And I'm like, I know what you're doing, game. I know you're giving me a breather. You'll do something funny, and then it'll be intense again. And it's like beat for beat exactly like that, so... Yeah,
well,
man, you'd love this game. You'd love this game.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing a bit more about it next week, and Mike will probably, you know, maybe join the convo about his, you know, experience with the game back when he first played it. But yeah, as you mentioned, we're not covering the rest of the stuff we played this week, so we're going to jump straight into a catch-up segment to talk about some of the headlines from last week because of how big it was. So we may have pulled a sickie last week, but we didn't miss the headlines. You know, we reacted to the Nintendo Direct, so go and check out a reaction. Some of these stories are related to that. The first of which being The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, finally getting a name called The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So the title was revealed in a new trailer during the Nintendo Direct, and the game has also had its release date revealed, which honestly... I think you were a bit surprised that it's hitting May next year. So
because everyone else thought it'd be a lot earlier, but I kept saying all the way through, I think this is going to be like holiday 2023, like Christmas. So I'd mentally prepared this is like November, whereas I think everyone else was thinking it's going to be early in the year, which I don't know why, given all the delays in the history of this Zelda team, which, you know, does great work, but obviously like has had many delays for every game it's released. But I'm super pumped about this. Like, I think I'm just really managing myself with this game. Like, just, you know, context for people that don't know, like, I love Breath of the Wild so much. You know, like, totally went crazy for that game. Collected all the 900 Korok seeds, like...
Oh, can you imagine what they're going to do in this one? If
wow,
more Korok seeds? Are you going to do the whole lot again?
Well, I don't know about that, but... I think the thing that's exciting about this game, and I started going down a path of, you know, going into the kind of insane people YouTube conspiracy theories, like breaking down every frame. And those people, man, I gotta tip my hat to them. Like, they are so good at like pulling on threads and then coming up with some whole theory, and you're like, far out, that does make sense. Like
the Game Explain people and people like that.
well, yeah, but even the ones that are like pretty much dedicated to like one game, like you get that a lot with Zelda. And like I know Dark Souls is very much like that. Like people try to pull out the lore of like Elden Ring, Dark Souls, all that stuff, Bloodborne. But the only thing, and I don't want to spoil it for myself, there were a few prominent sections where it was like really clear. There's like 7 spaces to populate. Like it looked like 7 jewels, or like a very classic Zelda thing, which makes me excited because I do think it's fair, the criticism about Breath of the Wild not having like dungeons and things like that. Because the divine beasts are not like dungeons. They're like mini dungeons at best, and they're very simple in my mind. So, if you had Breath of the Wild and actually had Zelda-like dungeons in it, like that's just totally incredible to me. So, I don't know. I'm very excited about it. Still, like, it's amazing how, there's still questions that people have. I don't really know the answer. Like, is it still the same Hyrule? Seems like it is at the base, but you've got the sky as well. It's amazing that we don't really fully know. Nothing is really leaked like in other Western games.
Yeah, it's a perfect kind of game to go in blind in that regard. Like the Zelda series is always about the magic of exploration and wonder of discovery. And I do, as much as, I do play up to the fact that, Breath of the Wild didn't blow me away or anything. I've always maintained the fact that the game is a fantastic game. The whole thing, but maybe it's not a great Zelda game. It's more that it just didn't hook me. And so what I still want to do is go back to it, because I wouldn't go to this game without playing through Breath of the Wild. It just feels like, especially if they do go and add dungeons, it would probably like make it even harder to go back to Breath of the Wild for me. But no, look, I'm looking forward to this in the sense that it's such a big game and it's going to make a lot of people happy, regardless of my feelings about I'm a huge Zelda fan. It's more my personal feelings about Breath of the Wild. But look, I think it's going to be interesting when it drops in mid-May. But that's not the only big news coming out of the Nintendo Direct. We also had a brand new Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem Engage was revealed. So this is, pretty much like they had a pretty in-depth trailer, because this game's actually coming in January, so it's not that far away. And considering this is the first time that officially talked about it, there've been some leaked images and stuff, but nothing from Nintendo themselves. So, the fact that this game's coming out, it's nearly October now, in basically just over 3 months or so, is pretty wild. But look, it's Fire Emblem. I think you already know if you're going to be interested or not. I do think they've got an interesting take on the fact that they're bringing in some of the classic characters as almost like supports or spirits in a way. I don't know. I can't remember the exact name of it, to aid the player. So, Marth is there, and it's almost like a persona or a stand from JoJo, where Marth is like a spirit attached to your character. It looks cool. The game will have town building and relationships, and obviously some of the hallmarks of the Fire Emblem series as it's gone throughout the years. So yeah, how about what do you think of this, Integot?
Yeah, look, like I'm only a new convert to Fire Emblem. I do like this style of game, like turn-based tactical RPG style game. But yeah, I'm pretty recent convert to Fire Emblem. What I would say is, like, I'll definitely play this. This would be like a day one thing, just because I really love Three Houses. But Three Houses was like a cohesive package that made me go, oh yeah, I want to try this. Like the setting, everything about it, right? Whereas this game doesn't grip me at all from that context. Like, I can't even tell you really the setting outside of, like the classical kind of medieval style knights, horses, all that kind of stuff setting of Fire Emblem. But I don't know, it just doesn't seem as cohesive as something like Three Houses, and especially when you're just bringing back heroes from other games, like how they're going to do that, everything like that. it's really fascinating to see how it's going to land. And like the main character doesn't really super excite me from a design point of view. I know that like a lot of people say the same thing, but yeah, it just didn't grip me like Byleth. Yeah, like it's a funny one. It like I'll be open to it obviously, and I'm definitely going to play it. But I don't know what it means. It's kind of interesting. It seems like it's more pointing back to the history of the series, which I'm just not that familiar with, to be frank.
Yeah, and look, and I think they'll probably do it in a way where it doesn't really matter if you are familiar or not. But obviously, it's a fan service ploy. You know, bringing in Marth and I know there were other characters I do recognize in the trailer, but the names have eluded me because I actually haven't played a Fire Emblem game since Shadow Dragon, the 3DS.
Yeah.
No, I think it was
Nah, that's DS, isn't it? Yeah.
DS remake, yeah. And so I never played Awakening, which was like the big turning point for the series. And Three Houses is obviously very well regarded. So I would actually like to play Three Houses before I ever play this one. But yeah, look, it's cool. It's a big tentpole for them for the start of the year. So
Yeah, I mean, Three Houses I think is pretty cheap at the moment as well. Like you can get that digitally for pretty cheap from memory, like $50 or something like that. So I'd definitely recommend that.
now the last, well, actually, no, there's another one that I'll mention at the end of this catch-up segment. But I guess one of the third big story that we're covering here is the fact that during the Nintendo Direct they announced a whole bunch of new N64 titles, and I for some reason haven't got included a list here with me, but I know Pilot Wing 64, the Mario Party games,
Mario Party
Pokemon-
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
yeah, Pokemon
Yeah.
Stadium. So there's a bunch of games, but and then at the end they revealed that Goldeneye is coming to the service as well. And then it's funny. So during the direct, you can watch where reacting. I said in the reaction, I'm like, God, we haven't even heard about the Xbox one yet because we knew that had leaked on Shoe Achievements.
Well, I
and everything
didn't,
like
but
that.
yeah.
And basically, right after the direct, then they announced the Xbox version as well. So this is a really weird kind of situation. This whole GoldenEye stuff. So the N64 version, from what we can tell, is the Switch version is the N64 version. It's on the N64 Switch Online service. I don't know if they're doing anything else to it because there's some just a lot of vague information, but it will have, just like the other N64 games, online multiplayer, but played, let's say GoldenEye is 4-player split screen. You can play it online against your friends, but it will be the split screen version regardless of whether or not it's local or online. With the Xbox version, they announced that, and they specifically said that there will be no online multiplayer. There will be local. And to be clear, this is not even the cancelled XBLA version that got leaked online like last year or some. It was a little while back. It's not even that version. It's so weird, this whole situation.
It's really, really odd. Like, breaking down a couple of things, because I heard some mixed information about whether this is going to be just pure GoldenEye 007, or are they going to like try to make the performance a little bit better for the Switch? But it seems like it's exactly the same.
Yeah, you know how some Switch Online N64 games, like there was a little improvement here and there as part of the emulation. I'm not sure if that will just come as part of this, maybe, because GoldenEye had major issues with frame rate. You'd hope that stuff clears up a little.
I
hope.
Don't
You'd
think
hope.
it will, right? But yeah, this is such a mess, man. So the other part of it is, like, let's just be real. Like, we played GoldenEye when it was out, right? That's how old we are. And it was awesome. But it was awesome for the context that you were playing it. Just like when, you know, back when we were kids, you have a Sony Walkman. It lasts for like a couple of hours. That's how you listen to music. It was awesome for the context. But now it's not so awesome, right? If you had a device that you had to go to the shops to buy batteries all the time, and then you throw out those said batteries, and you're effectively costing yourself like $20 each week just to use, you know, a Walkman for a few hours, it would get annoying, right? And man, like the pure controls of like GoldenEye on the Switch, it's gonna be like confronting to people. People are gonna go, it's confronting to me. I've tried to play it that style, and it's like super impossible to play it, like given the twin stick nature of what we play these days. And then for them to block, like, can we talk about like the logic or like what's going on here, right? Do you think that they're actually blocking online on the Xbox version as part of some weird deal with Nintendo to get this across the line? Or is it literally just like laziness? Like they don't want to create servers and stuff like that?
I think it has to be a deal with Nintendo because Xbox's bread and butter is online. Like that's what their Xbox Live was their big, selling point. Like everything now. We know this is not the fancy version of Goldeneye that they remastered. To be clear, this is still a remastered version on the Xbox. We don't know much about it, but we know it is higher resolution. They'll probably do some upscaling the textures, but it's nothing like what they were going to do. It's not like the Perfect Dark remaster they put out. It will have dual analog controls and stuff. So the controls at least will be better and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And from a frame rate standpoint, they're just... We don't know. We don't know the details. You'd hope it's 60, right? But when it comes to the online multiplayer, it doesn't make sense unless it's something to do with the fact that, GoldenEye is obviously a split screen game in the original version, and maybe the work to get it to be where you
it's their nemesis.
can view it,
It's their nemesis.
where you can view it
Split
like
screen.
as a single screen when you're playing multiplayer online. Maybe that part of work was too much and there's laziness there, but it's such a weird situation. Even the timing of the announcements, the fact that it came right after, it's like Nintendo had to announce their part first.
No, but that's
and
normal.
then the
That's
Xbox.
normal.
But like the fact that, so there's definitely stuff linked here.
Oh,
and
of course.
it wouldn't surprise me if there was a situation where it's almost like to get the game out in any form, Nintendo had certain criteria.
But it's just that conversation to me is really funny. It's like, Nintendo saying to Microsoft, we're the ones who are really good at networking and online multiplayer. So we want to restrict Goldeneye to be only in the shitty Nintendo 64
I know,
version.
it's weird.
That's going to run
weird.
at like 5 frames per second. I've thought about it because this is like a few weeks old. This announcement. I actually think it's just the laziness of Microsoft. Not laziness. That's the wrong way to say it because people are working hard. Microsoft has, to me, lost direction on some priorities. I actually honestly think Microsoft should have said, we're not going to do this deal if we can't have online multiplayer, right? And if they've like chosen internally to just not prioritize it, it's such a like insanely dumb decision. Actually, their decision around Halo Infinite and not having the local co-op, right? Like in local multiplayer, that's bad enough. But this would be like 10 times worse if it comes out that they chose to not have online multiplayer for GoldenEye 007. Like, what a stupid decision that would be if that's what they've chosen to do. Because like that would just give the brand such a good fillip. Like even for me, who am not an Xbox fan, I'd be like, damn, that's really cool. That's a really cool thing that they've done. But instead, this is like a very melancholy, like mixed launch. Like something that should be like celebrated is now like, oh. And the other thing that we haven't mentioned so far is there's no PC version. So I can't even play the Xbox version of it. Fuck me.
So this leads into what I was about to discuss now. So this game is also being packaged into the Rare Replay package. So, which never came out on PC, which absolutely sucks, right?
Stupid.
Because Rare Replay is awesome what they did there. And I don't think they're going to do what they did with the other games with this. They'll probably add it in, it'll be part of it, but they're not going to probably do all the, love them to do all the old documentary kind of footage and like the artwork of GoldenEye. They're probably just going to put it in and bundle it and say, okay, you can launch it from it. And it comes free to anybody who has Rare Replay, and it's also on Game Pass, right? Yeah, it absolutely sucks, but at least one thing I'll say to the PC users, at least you can play the leaked remaster, which is going to be better than this version. So,
but that's not complete. That I actually played that legally, of course, the leaked remaster.
If there's any way to legally play that.
And that it's a really cool version. Like, man, it's just so bloody weird what they've done here. Like, the other side of it is, I don't know if this is a further legality thing, but God's sakes, why didn't they just make a remake version? Like, not a remake, but you know what I mean? Like a remastered version that works on Switch and Xbox and PC and release that. Along with, the Nintendo Switch Online version. But you know what I'm saying? Like, why didn't they just make a version that's like put it as part of Rare Replay? Maybe sell it separately for like $19. I feel like that would just be like this little mini hit that people would go, how cool is this, right? Instead, this is such a shit announcement after so much time trying to get this game out again.
Yeah, so much time. That's all that's what I was thinking of. I think that GoldenEye's never been re-released in any form.
No,
And
never, ever,
This
ever.
it just landed with people are excited, but then when the realization kicked in and then the confirmation from like the Rare people and stuff about certain stuff, everyone's like, what the fuck? Like,
Why have
this should have been a blockbuster announcement, and it's just now just like a wet fart for many people.
Dude, I had the exact same word in my mind. Like, it's funny, actually. I had the exact same one. I was waiting to say it, and then you said it. It's like a wet fart. It's just like, man, you've just wasted this opportunity to like...
Why did you say sorry? You just
do something so fun, like... Damn, it would have been so cool. Like, especially now, not many games right now. I mean, October's massive. But right now, if they could have got it out... It would have been like super cool. Everyone would have played. I could totally see this being like a big streamer hit,
And that's the thing.
Fuck, it's so weird.
Both versions are just coming soon. We don't even know when they're coming.
I don't know what's up with that. I actually, literally, because I don't follow these things. It sounds weird being on a podcast, but I don't follow these things religiously. I checked my actual Switch and the Nintendo 64. I'm like, oh shit, GoldenEye is going to be on that, right? Because when they said coming soon, that was like a couple of weeks ago. So I'm like, it probably is here by now, right? And I jumped in. I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, when is this fucking coming out? Like, coming soon. What's the time limit on coming soon, in your opinion? Has to be like a month at most, right?
I could see November.
November.
Well, that's just over a month.
Jesus.
That's just over a month. So,
but why didn't they just say? Like,
I don't know.
2022.
Everything about
it's
this
stupid.
doesn't make sense.
It really is dumb. It's
but
so dumb.
You know what does make sense? A damn good trailer for Tekken 8 that came out of the PlayStation State of Play. So they teased a new Tekken at Evo like a month and a bit ago or so. And it didn't take long. I thought wouldn't hear about it for ages. And then State of Play, I think it opened with this awesome real-time trailer with Kazuya and Jin Kazama fighting it away, transitions to very cinematic gameplay style trailer, which is very clearly like the stuff in it that would be more so the story mode style cinematics that would work into it. But man, what a trailer. This looks absolutely awesome.
The only criticism I could ever have for this trailer is they literally needed to have the text, "This is the engine," like in bigger writing. Because when I watched this, I'm like, far out, this looks crazy, right? But I'm like, oh, this is some CG trailer or whatever. And then I'm like, this is on my phone. And then I'm looking, I'm like, wait, is this the actual game? Because, some of the angles are like very, like that's going to be the angle it has. Like this on the B-roll. I'm like, what the hell? Is this actually the game engine? And then I could see it like in small writing. I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy.
They did do some of that stuff in Tekken 7 story mode. So in some of those cinematic battles, it will transition to those, like you'd never have any of those angles in an actual normal match because, especially from a competitive standpoint, it just wouldn't work.
Of course.
Except the slowdown. I mean, that's always been in Tekken 7. But this is awesome. Like Harada has talked, like there's been interviews with him basically talking about, this game's on Unreal Engine 5 and they're rebuilding basically everything from scratch, at least model-wise. I'm not sure about like animations and stuff like that. You think probably bring some of that work over. But and it's coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series X. So massive, awesome announcement. I'm hyped for that. It actually got me to reinstall Tekken 7, so I've been playing a bit of that. So
I was literally going to buy that on Steam because it's like so cheap. Obviously, you don't get all the characters and stuff. But I do want to get into Tekken. It's a good like timing for fighting games, I think. Like with Street Fighter 6 coming out in like pretty soon, actually. It's like 6 months or so. And then this probably 2024, right? Because they said stay tuned. They didn't say anything else about it.
Yeah, probably.
Have they even finished the Tekken 7 seasons? actually.
Yeah,
'Cause-
Tekken 7's all wrapped up. What they did announce at Evo was a balance change and added some new mechanics. But
okay.
there was in terms of a content standpoint, the game is essentially finished unless they decide to maybe there's a resurgence and they do another season, kind of like because there's call for it.
I guess the one thing they haven't done yet is they haven't got like the Tekken 7 Gold version or whatever, with everything in it. That normally signals, okay, cool, the sequel's going to come out like pretty soon after that. So, but this looks cool, man. Looks cool.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to talk about, there's a very, I was going to talk about this last week, but not as a separate segment, but I'm going to put it in here, bugger it, because I have a bone to pick. So during the Nintendo Direct, had a very surprise and, at the time, very awesome announcement of Tales Symphonia getting a remaster. So Tales Symphonia, if anybody doesn't know, was originally a GameCube title, and then got a bunch of ports to like PS2, and got like a version of PS3 and PC and everything. And so they're like, okay, the game's getting remastered. Awesome. That's what I wanted Bandai Namco to do in the Tales devs. But then news comes out that this game, this remaster is based on the PS2 version, which runs at 30 frames a second. Now, you think back then, PS2 30 frames a second? Of course. The original GameCube version ran at 60. The very first version of this game ran at 60, and the remaster bloody runs at 30, the new version. This game, I'm holding up in my hands on GameCube, will run at a higher frame rate than the remaster that's coming out nearly 20 years later. Now, I am happy that they're giving us anything, but at the same time, it's like, what a fucking joke to put out a remaster of a game that's nearly 20 years old and have it run worse than the original. What the fuck?
That's pretty funny.
I just, the only thing I can think of is that, and people have said this is if everything's based off the PS2 version, right, that has extra content, right? So there is extra content. Clearly, I don't know, mate, do they not have access to the source code of the GameCube? Can they not change it?
I hate this kind of shit. But honestly, this is the kind of shit that I decide every day. Stuff like this, which is just purely people will go crazy if we get the GameCube version, doesn't have everything in it. We're not going to go build that shit again. We're going to blow our budget on it. 30 frames. It's not a game that really needs it. Just put it out like that. Or they're like, let's try to make it 60. And then they'll be halfway through the development cycle and go, we just can't make this 60. It's impossible, right? It's like, oh, well, it's too late now. I could totally see that happening. Not saying that it's good, but that's pretty that's pretty bad.
So this is coming to PC, PS4, and Xbox One, right? And Switch. I just love the fact that I'll be sitting there playing this. It's coming early next year, and we're running lower than Swinny all these years ago playing on this one. It's just weird to me. On my Series X, which is I'd love to do the calculation how much more powerful Series X is in the bloody GameCube. But anyway.
Oh, well, the GameCube's basically a Wii, so think about that. That's incredible, right?
Well, that's I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to mention, but that's the big catch up on all the headlines. Not all of them, but a
stack of news. Nintendo Direct was awesome in my opinion, and then also the state of play was awesome. Crazy that those things were back to back, only 10 hours apart or 8 hours apart, some ballpark like that.
Yeah, lots of cool Street Fighter news, but at this point it's okay, there's enough headlines this week to sink our teeth into. The first one being a huge batch of Grand Theft Auto 6 footage has leaked online in what could be considered the biggest leak in video game history. So posted to the GTA they were posted to the GTA forums and contained over an hour of early development footage. Over an hour, a game that hadn't even officially been revealed in any capacity, and they were allegedly stolen via the messaging program Slack. Rockstar's Slack. I haven't used Slack. I don't know if you've ever used Slack.
Yeah, I've used it.
But
it's
cool. It's wild, and there's also another situation that we won't get into, but that's related to this about Uber as well, and some leaks for them. But Rockstar issued takedown notices across the whole internet, so including they locked down the forums, locked down the Reddit, locked down everything. Obviously, anybody uploading that stuff to YouTube, there'd probably be striking, all that stuff, and confirmed that the footage was legitimate. So I've got a statement here from them. It's pretty standard stuff, but man, this sucks for them. It really does. We recently suffered a network intrusion in which an unauthorized third party illegally accessed and downloaded confidential information from our systems, including early development footage for the next Grand Theft Auto. We're extremely disappointed to have any details of the next game shared with you in this way. Our work on the next GTA game will continue as planned, and we remain as committed as ever to delivering an experience to you, our players, that truly exceeds your expectations. So, Integot, I don't know if you because this story was obviously just blew up, and it was like I can't remember if it was like Monday or Tuesday, but it was like right after when we normally do this show.
Yeah.
And it was just like everywhere. I couldn't avoid it. And like I saw some snippets here and there of people like on Reddit and stuff sharing it, and it was very clearly like lots of placeholder graphics and everything like that. And there's people being like, "This game looks like shit." And it's like, these fucking do you not know how game development works? And I loved. There's a great. I don't know if it was a meme or something, but someone's like, people their expectations of early development footage. Oh, I'm building a house. Half the house is finished, and like half the house has everything. It's all furnished, and there's people living in one house, and the rest of it's just a blank, empty area. And game development doesn't work that way. There's to think that this game, like this, is not footage they would ever show to anybody.
No, God, no. And I mean, it's always interesting in the future when you look back at some of this stuff. Similar, I think the only game that could be comparable is maybe the Half-Life 2 leak. Like, that was also a hack. There was also intrusion. The source code itself was leaked in that case as well. And people learn things about Valve and everything like that from that. I think this is no doubt in my mind. This is, for a single game, the biggest leak in the history of gaming. Like, GTA 5, I just checked it. It's sold 169 million copies as of June 2022. Like, a single game, right? Like, it's crazy to me. It's sold that much.
Well, especially when you do think of, like the monetary impact that this game is going to have. Because if a small B game, let's say one of my Eurojank RPGs that I love, if early development footage of that game leaked, no one gives a shit, right? People are still going to buy it, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that this leak's going to stop people buying Grand Theft Auto, but it's not. Like the difference is like this. It's insane the amount of money it's tied up in this game.
Yeah, and I think we have enough data points to say that this type of stuff can be very disruptive for the release and launch and the marketing of a game. So as we saw with Last of Us Part 2, which, nice, tie back to the start that I'm playing Part 1, but all the leaks of that game, the story, I actually don't know what they are concerning, right? Because I avoided it because I don't want to spoil that game. But I know a lot of people felt the game was spoiled, or, they heard, okay, this is how the game's going to play out. And they're just like, no, it's impossible. And it actually was all real. It was all confirmed. And then that was super, annoyed about it, right? And I think you and I are fairly reasonable about how these things are built, right? It's just like anything in life, really. You don't do the polish at the start. You do the polish at the end. Yeah. So why would you have something operating in perfection when they're still working on it? They're still like 2, 3, who knows how many years away from releasing this game. So there's no way that something that was from at least 2 years ago, they reckon, in terms of the build that this was stolen from, like that's going to be so off the pace, right? You're lucky it's not even just a grey box like some of these studios put together just to test the mechanics of how things are going to work and the missions and all that stuff. So to me, it's like definitely the biggest leak that we've ever seen. And it's going to be tough to figure out what are they doing to manage it now that, like we had articles from like Jason Schreier, you've had rumors about where it's set, but now like effectively that's been like, that's out there now, and that would be very frustrating because I'm sure that was going to be a part of the reveal whenever that was going to be, right? Like there's the stages, you're in marketing. It's like, you'd be mapping it out. It's like setting, that's a reveal. What's the name? Like if you're going to have some subtitle or whatever, right? That's a reveal. Like all these things are reveals. The protagonists, that's a reveal. Like, honestly, like most of those are now like ruined from like a surprise factor. So, because people are going to, I know that. I saw the 1 hour of footage that got leaked. And like on that, like I only watched a little bit of it because it's a bit like, what's the point? Like As if I don't know what this is gonna be. It's GTA, man. They're not gonna do anything different.
It was okay. There's someone walking around a diner. Big whoop.
I think I saw that footage as well.
With placeholder stuff. Like, there's no. It's if you're massively into GTA, I can see being like, oh, I'm going to sit here and look at all this stuff.
Maybe.
But as someone who's like, has played most of the games, but is still just like on the sidelines a bit about everything GTA, it's like, yeah, okay, I'll play it when it comes out. I still need to bloody play through GTA 5, so I'm not personally that invested in it, but. Yeah, look, they did the hacker, which actually I'm not going to name to give them any cred, but basically they did claim that apparently they had source code or elements of source code of GTA 6 and GTA 5, as well as a test build of GTA 6, and we're looking to negotiate a deal with Rockstar. But everything about this is really kind of, there's so many news articles that I had like 10 tabs open. I'm like, okay, what is the story? What's going on here? And basically, there's also apparently like, there's like a hacker group or whatever, the technical term for it is that these people apparently associated with, and they're claiming responsibility for an Uber data breach. And the FBI got involved around that stuff, and so a few days later, after all this stuff, it may have been like 2 days ago, UK police, in a joint operation with the FBI, arrested a 17-year-old in Oxfordshire with reports claiming, now we don't know 100%, that it's in relation to these breaches. If that is the case, man, they've worked quick on this. Like, money really talks to show how this works. That's insane if they actually did already get this person.
So many things on this one, like, just on this person. So the laws in the UK protect people under 18. So they can't even say what the details are, but it's all but sure. That's what it's about, right? And which, we've actually had a hack in Australia of Optus, which is our second biggest telecommunication provider, like something like Sprint in the States.
I wish we could do a segment where it
and
bag the shit out of
it's so
Optus.
Insane. It's like they've got data, like the equivalent of like social security numbers that they don't need to store, right? And they've stored it for everyone and then had it's accessible via API. So you can actually just call it like so conveniently, give me that data. And also, by the way, they're not noticing that like gigabytes of information are leaking from their network.
Unencrypted plain text versions of bloody driver's license numbers.
License number, passport numbers. Like, for instance, in Victoria, where I was born, you can't change your driver's license, even though it's been breached and people can use it to create a credit card. You can't change it unless you're a victim of hacking.
It's so stupid. It is so stupid.
The worst one in Australia is TFN. That one, you can't even change. So like TFN's like our social security number. You can't change that even if you have been a victim of crime. They still won't let you change it. They've literally got a rule where you cannot change it. The only time they'll change it is in some cases with like witness protection or some shit like that. Like, like the government's fully involved at that stage. But man, it's actually straight up pathetic. Like that a 17-year-old is able to breach something like this. And who knows about the Optus thing. But it's like these companies are not treating these things seriously enough. Like, you're always going to get people who are able to infiltrate your network through social engineering, which seems to be the case in this case. You can't have it so open that like someone internally can just download these kind of builds in a fashion that's not like permitted and then be able to, use it, that they could actually create videos and everything like that. Like it's really bad, man. Like these companies just pay a lot of lip service to cybersecurity, but they don't actually give a shit about it, obviously. And like the only thing I wanted to touch on from that is, man, this is gonna this is gonna be a lot of people pushing to say, this is why we shouldn't have remote working, right? This is why we need to go back and get people back in the office, because if we had people back in the office, stuff like this is way less likely, right? Because it is true, it's much easier to lock down a network if you're physically located. I love what Nintendo does. When I don't know if you know this, but Nintendo, they literally have physically bolted their 3DSs and Switches in the office. you can't just play it freely. It's actually physically bolted to the desk. They don't even trust their employees that much. So yeah, man, it's crazy, this leak. And yeah, look, I do feel sorry for the team behind it, because you work your ass off on something like this to have like a really cool reveal, and then for it to be ruined, and then for people to just be like, oh, this looks shit. Oh man, GTA 3 looks better than this, bro. It's like, that shit would drive me nuts, man. That would drive me nuts. It'd be fun. You know what? They should put a special option in the game that can turn as a shader, like the whole game into the style of this leaked footage. That would be good.
Make it look like Turok on N64.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, that wasn't the only piece of news this week. We also had news about the Super Mario movie. So, Integot, you're very excited about this. So
Yeah.
We know... Oh, sorry, go.
Yeah, go on. No.
I was going to say, we now know when the first trailer is going to hit. So it will be shown at the New York Comic Con on the 6th of October. So not far away. And in the Nintendo Direct as well, I'm fairly certain it was in the Nintendo Direct, they revealed the release date, didn't they? When Miyamoto came up.
They've done it before. I know that
they pushed it.
Yeah, they announced it. But it was really confusing to me, because it was like, wait, are they releasing this in different times they're definitely releasing at different times in America and Japan. Right? And I think it's like weeks apart, which I remember talking about it on the show. I'm like, that's bullshit if they're doing that. That's fucking annoying. And if they don't release this in Australia, I will download this fucking movie.
Well, I grabbed the release date of the 7th of April 2023 from VGC, so I'm assuming they would have grabbed the American.
Okay, here we go. Oh, whoa, this is crazy. Australia, 30 March 2023.
So we're getting it early.
1 week early.
Wow.
So weird. Thank God, though. Okay, I'm very supportive of the staggered release schedule. And Japan, it's 28 Feb. 28 April, 28 April. So
wait.
Almost a month after Australia.
Wow.
So weird. This is on IMDb. So
I guess, look, movies often do come out in Australia first for a weird reason, don't they?
They test it to see the audience reaction.
Yeah.
Australia is often used also for apps. Australia's almost the number one pick. English speaking country, very small population. So if it goes to shit. And also the time zone as well. We're one of the first to click over the new day. So it works perfectly, Australia, as a testing ground. It's funny to think of Australia as just it's like a pilot country. It's like our national release is pilot for them.
You know what's funny? Talking about pilots, this is completely unrelated to Mario movie. It just reminded me. You know how some of a lot of our supermarkets here in Australia have the self checkouts. Right?
Yes, yeah, I love them.
So my local Woolworths said. They had a big sign at the front when you walk in saying, please be aware, we are testing new cameras that check you when you're checking out. If you are if everything matches up to the stuff you're scanning, so you can't just pocket items in the self-checkout. But they're testing that where I am. And it's funny because they also, when they introduced these self-checkouts, they tested in my area as well. So it's is this area just...
You are in the dodgy area.
This is the primordial testing soup for bloody Woolworths, But that's interesting. I just thought I'd bring that up. They're
probably we get the most theft in this area, so let's test these things.
Yeah,
if it works there...
Yeah.
What they have at my checkout, in my area, is it has a color detector. So if I put a carrot there and I press fruit and veg, it only shows me orange things. I can't pick anything else. Which actually, initially I didn't notice it, right? And I did it and I pressed it. I'm like, oh, wow. That's weird that, carrots are one of the most popular things. Click it. And then I scanned a potato or something. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. It's not popularity. It's actually looking at the color. So, yeah. It's amazing. So I'll dob my mum in. My mum hates those checkout things with a passion, like you, right? She hates it.
No, I used to, but
wait, this is a law for the show. Context is Swinny was refusing because he doesn't want people to do. He doesn't want to do the job for them.
No, that actually wasn't the reason. it was because they used my area as a testing ground, and it was just a weird part of me is like,
Bullshit.
screw you until no, that's the whole reason why I didn't want to, right?
Oh, okay.
It was got nothing to do with I'm going to do other people's jobs. I don't care.
You have been like
but
that.
The unfortunate,
Remember the security guard incident where we almost didn't get into the fucking festival because of you? That was like, we'll explain that some other day, but that was fucking crazy.
But the unfortunate part for me, like, I couldn't uphold that any longer when I worked in the city because they didn't even have any other way to then the self-checkout. So, well, I guess I got to use this now.
Yeah, because my mum, like, build on this story. She went to Macca's, and my local Macca's, there's no way to order unless you do self-service, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, what? And she went up to the counter and she's like, I want to order something. And they go, oh, yeah, on the screen. And they go, no, it's just something small. Can I just order it? And they go, we can't. We don't have a register anymore, right?
Wow.
And then she goes, well, I'm leaving then. And I'm like, as if they care, right? Like these are little kids who are getting paid the bare minimum they get in Australia. So she goes to the supermarket and she does, like, if she's forced, she goes, if I'm forced to do the self-checkout, I always put in, like, oh, I'm buying, like an avocado or something that's expensive. She always puts something else that's cheaper. She dials in the wrong thing on purpose on every item, every single item. And I go, you're stealing, right?
That is literally stealing.
She goes, it's not stealing. I'm just picking something else. And I go, it's 1,000% stealing. Like, steal.
It is literally theft.
But it's stealing. It's like there's no like gray, right? It's straight up theft. It's not, you're literally going in there going, what's similar to this? And she lives in your area, so it's probably contributing. She might end up on the footage.
Well, that's I'm not going to get into the whole location aspect of it, but you should probably let her know if she hasn't seen those signs. Man.
The idea of her having a wanted sign at the local Woolies is so awesome to me.
So rather than give her a heads up, you just rather her actually get her.
That would be funny. That would be funny if she got pulled over. Okay, we need to check all your items, ma'am. Because the robot's telling us that you're stealing from us. Anyway, but look, this Super Mario movie, I'm super looking for.
The Mario movie. That's right. That's
Do you like that segue? I'm looking forward to it. Selfishly, because it's been delayed so much, my kids are getting older, so they'll be able to watch it properly now. Although they all like Sonic, they hate Mario. Bastards.
Look, they'll still enjoy the movie.
Well, maybe this will turn them around. This is important. That's why they've, got a lot of time in the oven for this movie. So I'm looking forward to it. But this is going on way too long, this segment. Do you think they'll actually release this trailer?
I think what generally happens with these Comic-Con things is at least like the Marvel stuff and the DC stuff, they're like, oh, we try to lock it down, and then they just end up releasing it because there's like, people take dodgy footage and they don't want the dodgy footage to represent. So I think they will release it, but it maybe will come out like 5 hours after it's actually been shown.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. Like, how that's going to play out. Okay, cool.
Cool. So I'm going to actually hand over to Integot to cover the next story because I'm the worst person to talk about PC hardware.
Well, I am the second worst, given that Mike's not here, but Nvidia has officially announced the newest generation of graphics cards, the 40 series, headlined by the Nvidia 4090. So these are all in US pricing. So the 4090 will be released on the 12th of October this year. Actually, it's going to be 22 too.
Yeah.
12th of October this year for $1,600 US, which comparably is pretty similar to other years. The 4080 will be released in two models, very marketing here, 16 gigabytes and 12 gigabytes, which is $1,200 US and $900 US, which on the $1,200 one is a massive markup from the 3080, which is about, I think, $500 US cheaper in terms of RRP. So that's a massive increase.
One article I was reading was saying that the the 4090, the higher end model was like a 7% increase.
Yeah, marginal.
And it was
yeah.
like a 25% roughly increase or something around that area for the model. So massive.
Yeah, massive,
increase.
massive change. So their features include updated AI upscaling tech, the DLSS 3, which is now going to be supported by things like Unreal Engine 5 and has got an update to Unity. DLSS 3's new capability called optical multi-frame generation generates entirely new frames rather than just pixels, delivering massive performance boost according to Nvidia. So these things haven't been tested yet. Because DLSS frame generation executes as a post-process on the GPU, it can boost frame rates even when the game is bottlenecked by the CPU. Also announced is a free RTX mod for Portal. So you'll be able to have things like RTX lighting in older games using the RTX Remix tool, which actually is a very, very cool thing. There's a whole deep dive, and you should check it out. I think you'd even like it, on the RTX Remix tool that they've built, where they've actually brought in, it was either Morrowind or the game before Morrowind. I can't remember.
It probably would have been Morrowind.
Daggerthorn? Dagger something? Is
Oh, really? Daggerfall?
Yeah, maybe it's
RTX
Daggerfall.
into Daggerfall. Wow.
So what they did is they dragged the game in, right? And this RTX Remix tool, it sort of takes over the rendering of the game. Then they actually started replacing all the assets, and the AI technology actually detects what type of material like is in the game, and therefore what kind of lighting would you expect to see off it. And it looks unreal, man. Like, this is actually, like, there's a lot of criticism that I'll give Nvidia like soon, but man, like, I have to tip my hat to them in terms of releasing this tool. And a lot of the tools that they've been releasing, like with Nvidia Broadcast, where you can use AI models to remove noise, remove background, so like green screen effects, all this kind of stuff, all that cool stuff that they're doing, I really do appreciate. And this RTX Remix tool looks really, really cool. In general, like, these type of effects, I don't know, maybe I'm just too dumb, but I'll turn that on and off and I'm like, yeah, like, I can kind of see the difference, but it doesn't really like blow me away or anything like that. The whole DLSS stuff, though, if you like do more like PC gaming, Swinny, like the DLSS stuff is crazy how much it improves the performance. It's like, basically, you just have to turn it on for any game that it supports it. And it's awesome now that like the engines that most games are going to use to build are going to have it from the start. So all the, new Unreal Engine 5 games and Unity games, like, they all have it. And that is one of the biggest jumps in performance. But going back to pricing, man, far out. Like, basically what's happened is with this supply chain crunch, crypto boom, like, GPU prices have like quadrupled in the last like 5 years. And now they're locking in the prices from a RRP perspective. And I actually been holding out a bit for the 40 series, and I was going to buy a new GPU. And then they announced the pricing, and I'm like, fuck you. Like, there's no way I'm buying this. Like, no way.
And you got the CEO basically saying that, falling GPU prices are a thing of the past. That's what they're trying to push. Obviously, they're not going to ever say the opposite.
Yeah.
But that this whole thing of like was it Ethereum or whatever, like changing the way that it works, and now that that GPU mining stuff is like not going to be as much of an issue as it used to be. It's like, not that I'm saying that would then cause them to like price this stuff lower, but to go up, especially on that like the 4080, like, these cards are already ridiculously priced. And I'm someone that, look, I haven't upgraded my PC in a long time, but there comes a point soon where I'll be like, okay, I'll probably be in the market, and I look at any of these prices and I'm like, I'm not interested. Like, it just pushes me away straight away. And I know that for a lot of people, this is what they love and they will pay the money. But the fact that they will pay the money just means that Nvidia can get away with their pricing. It's really sucks.
Yeah, and look, who knows? Maybe just because of the supply chain issues, because we still have the supply chain issues, right? Like, China's factories are just not at the same capacity that they were before, and it's had this whole effect on the whole region. And same as Vietnam, they build a lot of stuff there, and Taiwan is a massive risk factor at the moment with like the whole bubbling escalation in that region. And we're only talking about that because it relates to the gaming side, but like all of these companies are based there or have major operations there, like literally factories that there's one or two in the entire world to make these type of chips. So yeah, it's like, it's such a piss take from Nvidia, like such a fucking piss take. I do think it's going to have a massive impact on people's interest in getting these kind of cards. And AMD, which is really funny that they did this, because this NVIDIA event was coming up, and then AMD 2 hours before announced that they're going to release their new series of graphics cards and talk about them in November. And they released the save the date 2 hours before the NVIDIA. Like, they hate each other, those companies, right? But I mean, look, you know how I was talking about Halo Infinite and also Battlefield having such an opportunity in a down year for Call of Duty to take advantage. This is like, and they fumbled that so hard. AMD has a massive opportunity to get back in the game with their Radeon cards. Like, if they actually have some really decent cards, and I mean, recently with their CPUs, they've released the new lineup for Ryzen cards, Ryzen CPUs. The pricing was pretty decent. So if they don't go crazy, and you know what they'll do? They'll bump it up a little bit, given that Nvidia's taken a lot of the heat already, right? But they'll bump it up a little bit and still say, hey, we're well below the other guys. And if they deliver performance that's like a step up, I'm like, honestly, even I will look at it and go, maybe I'll just get a Radeon card, right? Like, fuck, I don't have an allegiance to these fucking companies. I don't give a shit, man. I used to have a Mac. I've got a PC now. Like, I don't mind switching back and forth. It does not bother me at all. So that's November, the start of November. So I'm guessing Mike will be back on the show by then. So
yeah,
it'd be interesting to get his input on it.
I was going to say, if he joins us next episode, we might just have a quick thing at the top where we just get his take overall on this stuff. Because and now that assuming I might be doing the hosting duties that time, I'll keep him to a very confined time period where he doesn't reach out to the other boxes in his room to then start talking about packaging, sizing of GPUs and whatnot. So
good.
But yeah. So the next story is Logitech. So after a brief announcement last month, which we did very briefly mention on the show, and some recent leaks, I'm so over leaks now with the whole GTA stuff. Logitech and Tencent have fully revealed their new cloud gaming handheld called Logitech G Cloud. Now, to be clear, upfront, this is currently only for order in US and Canada, so we can't order it here. So I just wanted to get that up front. What is it? So it's an Android device that supports services such as, Xbox Game Cloud, cloud gaming, I should say, Stadia, Steam Link, GeForce Now. So a lot of the biggest streaming services. It also does play Android games natively as well, and was developed in partnership with Tencent. So it's coming 17th of October, so very soon in the US, and it's priced at, and we'll probably have a bit to talk about this price, $350 US for a device that is designed around cloud gaming.
And for people who are interested, it's $299 currently. If you order it right now, like pre-order it.
Yes, I originally had that info there and I removed it because I'm like, well, screw you. You're not releasing in Australia yet. But basically, I'll just cover some basic specs before we give our thoughts about this thing. Because there's other similar products out there, but Logitech is obviously a big name in PC hard, like peripherals and stuff. But basically, this thing is about 10.11 inches wide, so it's actually pretty big. I can't remember how wide the Steam Deck is. Do you remember if that's as big as that or?
No, it's more like a Switch. It's more like a Switch.
Okay. It's. I'm not, I'll mention some of this stuff, but it's got a Snapdragon CPU. I don't know anything about this stuff. No, sorry, Snapdragon, it says octa-core CPU, so I'm guessing that's all the same stuff there.
Yeah, 8 cores. It's like an Android phone.
Yeah, and it will output 1080p resolution. It's got a 7-inch touchscreen LCD. It's not OLED. They say 12 hours of battery life, but who knows if, what that is when it's doing that. They could be basing that off the fact that you're just playing simple Android games or whatever. But it does have haptic feedback, which is interesting because a lot of these handhelds don't have that stuff. So that is an interesting feature. It's got a gyroscope, it's got remappable controls, it's got a headphone jack, USB-C, and a bunch of standard stuff that you expect, obviously Wi-Fi support and all that stuff. So, integot. You wanted to talk about this.
Yeah.
I'm keen to get your take on what this is and if it's worth that price point.
It's interesting, right? Like, to put it into pricing, like for Australia, like convert the currency GST, right? It's like $5.99 here. So imagine going into a store, Swinny, and you're familiar, like PlayStation. I guess we did actually just get an increase on the PS5, right? But Xbox Series X, that's like $750 in Australia for the disc model, right? $150 more than this, right? Go in the store. Recently, the Splatoon edition of the Switch thing that you got, that was just on sale for $444, right? And then this is like $600. Like, I really truly struggle to understand what has gone wrong, because Logitech, make a lot of cool stuff, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff I use from them.
I just bought a Logitech keyboard this week.
Yeah. So I've got no worry about Logitech. I think they're a pretty decent brand, right? I got a lot of stuff from them, but I just don't understand what's happened for them to think this is gonna work. Like, who's gonna get this? Seriously? Like, if you're in the States and you could order a Steam Deck from $350, like, why are you ordering this? Like, you can do everything with the Steam Deck pretty much that you could do with this, but you could also use it as a fucking console, right? Like, it's so weird. I don't get it. Like, this would only make sense if it's called the Xbox Cloud. So then I understand it to a degree.
Weirdly, right? And I'll justify why. This device appeals more to me than the Steam Deck outside of the price point, right? The price point is just ridiculous. If this was a lower price device, the reason being is because it also supports Xbox Remote Play, which is something I do use, and I've used a lot in the past, where you can stream to a device from your local console. So form factor controls, it's one of those things where, like, you have to feel it to really know.
But it looks decent.
It's good.
Looks decent.
This thing is pretty light, and that's why it would actually appeal to me. Is that I can't remember how much the Steam Deck weighs, but this thing is very, very light, and the idea of having something just to use for that remote play is actually appealing to me, because I've tried. Phone screens are pretty small, right? And there's some games that I'm playing, like the Astro Ascending game I talked about at the top of the show, has very small font. And some developers just unfortunately don't get the memo that, accessibility is a thing. You need to really to bump fonts up.
Well, it's not, at that point, not even accessibility, just fucking can't read.
Well, this has tiny font in this game. It's funny, there is actually a way you can increase the font size, but it doesn't increase any of the menu fonts, which are the issues. But anyway, the whole point is that the reason being, if this was a cheaper device, because it's lighter and it supports that remote play stuff, I'd be okay. Like, that is more of an appealing to me than a device like the Steam Deck, which is a fantastic device, but I just don't need it in my life because anyway. But I don't know why they're pricing it that high. Like, I'm sure the stuff, maybe it's decent, really good build, but they're pricing themselves out of the market, basically, I think.
But I think this is where, look, and Nintendo don't make consoles that they lose money on generally, right? Like, I think in the history of that company, they've probably never done it, right? Probably Nintendo 64 might have been the only occasion, right? But the Switch, like, inherently as a business, you're getting all the money off, like, the sales of the software as well, right? So even if something's a bit like, it's marginal, this is what we'll price it at, you're gonna get all that money from all the indies on there, all the third-party publishers, your own first-party games, right? Logitech aren't getting any of that, right? So they have to price this, I guess, with the margin that they're going to make money. And I think once you just add everything up, it's like, it just can't make sense if you've got other gaming companies like Valve and Nintendo making this. And on your point on the weight, like, what if this happened? What if Microsoft and Nintendo did a deal and had Game Pass, Remote Play, and Cloud as one app on the Switch? Dude, like, it would kill this thing overnight, right? Because it costs the same amount, and it weighs the same amount. It actually weighs more than the Switch, this device, which I don't understand how that's possible. Like, what is it? It's just a fucking screen that shows shit. Like, why is it so heavy?
Look,
like, does it actually? I know we should know this.
I
But does
actually
it
don't
actually
know.
play games? Like,
Yeah, no, I said it.
okay.
But no,
okay,
but only Android stuff. Though.
Yeah. Okay. That
Yeah. I said it natively runs Android stuff.
Okay. Can I just say, like, I feel like they've made a mistake there because I guess maybe they look at it and then it's like stuff like Genshin Impact. Like, maybe people are looking for something like this to play Genshin Impact. But I don't does that make sense actually? I don't know.
Yeah, look,
Maybe.
This is just, I know when we first briefly talked about this on the show, it was just like, it just felt like a weird thing in general, the concept of to me, a cloud handheld device is a weird concept in general.
Yeah.
And then to price it this high makes it ludicrous. I mean, I don't know if have Logitech done anything like this in the past? Any kind?
Nothing successful because I can't remember.
Well, I'm just thinking any kind of they haven't done tablets and stuff, have they?
Nah, not that I can recall.
So yeah, anyway.
Look,
I can't see this being successful.
I mean, this is actually, it's funny we're referencing Mike so much in the show, but you know how he always buys those knockoff Chinese dodgy handhelds? They're all Android handhelds. All the things that he buys, right? There is a market. I don't get it. I think that there's super dodge quality, and I just literally don't understand why people would spend so much money on something that's gonna break. Maybe if Logitech looks at that and says, you know what, there's a lot of people buying this crap already as an emulator device, as all this other stuff, and then we're both talking about this as cloud, but this is really an Android handheld. Right?
But the thing is, the entire thing is branded as a cloud.
It's literally called cloud. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
But, maybe other people look at it differently, right? Definitely not for me, 0%. But can I just say one thing? I love that the screen is just fucking 1080p. I hate that the Steam Deck screen is... they must have got some mega deal for it to be dirt cheap. But the fact that their screen is something from memory, 1280 by 800, it's some weird-ass resolution. That looks shit for a lot of games that haven't adapted to it. Drives me nuts. That really pisses me off. But you actually said that you are half a chance of getting this.
No, if this was priced way lower.
Yeah, okay.
All I'm saying is this device appeals more to me with what I'd want a device to do in my current gaming setup, because the thing is, the Steam Deck is fantastic, but there's nothing there that would drive me. Whereas remote play aspect. Now, maybe you can get remote play working on a Steam Deck and whatever, right? It's more that it's more that. Well, that's the thing is, I haven't heard that news, so that's basically to me they're specifically actually talking about this with this device.
So okay, so this is 600 Australian dollars. What if they had and I'll name it, the Logitech G Cloud Lite?
Dude, this device would be a $200 device if I bought it.
I was gonna say 350. I was gonna say 350.
No. I'm saying this would have to be
okay.
a cheap ass device, because to me it's I just want it's just basically a streaming device. It doesn't feel like it needs any kind of computing power to do anything but run the most basic shit, but whatever.
Yeah, I think when the Steam Deck becomes more globally available and they're producing it so that people can buy it, you could never argue to get one of these things instead of a Steam Deck. So
cool. So I think you're going to cover the last story again, because you're Mr. Analog, not Mr. Nosferatu. You're Mr. Analog.
well, there's two major things that happened this week. So over the last fortnight, I should say. It's a bit old news now. So the SNES core did get released. So this guy AGG23 was actually the guy that did the Pong core. So, Mr. AGG23, you should, reach out to us. We were talking about your Pong core. Everyone wants to talk about the SNES. We're talking about Pong, baby. So, yeah, looked like super pumped. It does show how relatively easy people are porting these things from Mr., which, a lot of these cores, like actually all of the cores so far, apart from the Pong one that I understand, have been ported from. And also relatively newbies, supposedly, like in the words of their own people who are porting this across. So the SNES core is super feature rich. Like pretty much like for most people, there's been now 2 versions of it, the SNES core. You can play like most of the games that you're thinking of playing. Like there's barely anything that you can't play.
So question, for people and just keep in mind that I'm very ignorant of how like GitHub works and all this stuff. People, let's say they're working on the SNES core separately. Do you have situations where someone's just going to be like, no, I'm going to have my own one and release that out there? Or do basically, once something's live, do people just be like, okay, well, there's no point working on it separately. I'll just kind of move towards this project and kind of like join a community for this existing core,
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. So it's mixed. So in general, I think if someone has released something and it's like nearly done and you're like at 80%, people probably just abandon it, right? What will be very interesting to me about a lot of these things, and like I just want to say like quickly, I've used the SNES core a lot. I deliberated over what's the first game I'm going to play on it, and like I literally was not meaning to pick this game, but I ended up playing a bunch of Super Metroid on it. I was going to play anything else, and then I was like, I just want to see this one aspect, and then I just started playing it. And it's, dude, like when you get the Analogue Pocket, it's going to be chef's kiss, man. It's going to be crazy. Like they've got so much stuff out now, and it fucking, like I actually had another friend who came over who, grew up in the SNES era as well. I'm like, hey, try to play this, how it feels. And they played like, Super Metroid, Mario World, Mario Kart. And they're like, damn, this feels like crisp, man. It feels perfect. Like controls everything. It's so cool. But yeah,
does it have a Super Eagle filter?
No, thank God. No. And look, like Analog are going to
good old ZSNES
start patching in some of the stuff. Like I'm going to be really interested when they finally update the OS and so I can use the DAC, so then I can plug the Pocket into my Trinitron, my old Sony Trinitron, just to see what these things look like. But the one thing that, and it's not a criticism, it's just like a feature that hasn't been built, is for me, the ability to turn the Pocket on and off is like super crazy. Like I need that, right? Same as a Switch. Like I'm in the middle of playing something in the Switch, I just press the power button, it freezes the game, right? Now that works like that for things like Game Boy Advance, all that kind of stuff. On the Pocket, you actually need to build that into the core. So like the SNES core, they actually need to do a bunch of work to be able to get that to work. So currently you can't do that. And for me, it's like...
So you'd have, if you wanted to do that, you'd have to, save state and then
they'd have to
turn off?
Well, yeah, they have to build that functionality into the core itself.
That's what I'm saying. Like the alternative at the moment is to save state.
No, there isn't. No, because you need that to be able to do that. They haven't built that. Yeah. So there's no save states.
Okay.
Yeah. Save states, the way it works, is very different than like a software emulator.
I know that. I just assumed there would at least be the ability to save state.
No, that's really complex. Even Mr. doesn't have that for a lot of cores, right?
Okay, so you just have to save the game.
So it's actually like, it's like legit. Like you actually have to find save places. And that all works. So if you can find a place to save, you can save, and then that's it. But that's not super useful for me. So I probably won't actually use the SNES core that much at the moment because, like, dude, I play the Analogue Pocket. That's the only thing I carry gaming-wise on the train now, right? And it's awesome. Like, I could just turn it on, start playing, I'm on the train, need to get off the station, whatever, bang, like, press the power button, which just, sleeps the screen, right? And I don't have any battery issues. It's perfect. I love it. But with the SNES, it's just not going to work. I'm going to be like, pulling up to the station going, shit, I'm in a boss battle here or something. It's like, what do you fucking do, right? It just won't work for me. So, and I look, honestly, to your point before, which is like, how did these things get made and what do people focus on? People, I've noticed, it's like, they're not as obsessed as I am about the ability to pick it up and put it down really quickly. And there's a lot of work you need to do to get it to work. So I wouldn't be shocked if a year from now we're talking about this and they still haven't coded that part of it. Like, I hope that's not the case, but I wouldn't be shocked. But the other thing, just quickly, that also got released is a Genesis core, or like Mega Drive for us. So, man, they're like two of the biggest, in that sort of retro era. Outside of the NES, like that's the only one that's left really, that, out of the majors.
I'm kind of surprised the NES.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of the last ones.
It just feels like that's so much simpler than a Genesis,
Yeah, so
maybe I'm very ignorant of that. So.
Well, the Genesis / Mega Drive one is very buggy. Like, I wouldn't even recommend people playing it outside of just trying it out. But it'll come along. The guy, the AGG 23 guy, he actually was making the NES core, and then was like, I was following him on Twitter, or our show follows him on Twitter. I'm like, he literally was just posting, hey, I'm going to try to, see if I can get the SNES core working just as a muck around. And then got it working within like a couple of days. Now, supposedly this guy's not even like a huge, contributor in that scene. So it seems fairly easy to port stuff to the Analogue Pocket. So yeah, my expectation would be like pretty much everything before PlayStation will get on the Pocket with time, which is really cool.
Need them to put the PC Engine TurboGrafx on so I can start Bonk 2. Because if you remember Bonk, the first Bonk game was I think it may have been our very first episode we had a special feature on.
Yeah, we played it. Yeah, neither of us had ever played it before. So it's not a bad game. It's not a great game, but it's not a bad game.
Bonk 1 was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Pretty tough.
Yeah, it was crazy tough. I think that will come. I think PC Engine will come shortly. So yeah, it's a very cool time to have an Analogue Pocket. It feels like every day there's some new announcements on it. But yeah, the SNES, man, I can't believe it. It's like really, really cool. And then also like arcade games that I love, like Galaga is already working. So you can play Galaga, and yeah, there's a whole host of like games like Donkey Kong, Pac-Man that are all coming shortly as well. So like, I'm actually at a point where I'm like, man, I'm not going to install these things manually anymore. Like, there's actually someone who's made an installer where you can like click, like, I want this system, I want that system, because it's, and Neo Geo got an update as well. So
honestly,
that's pretty much
the
complete
kind of,
now. So
that's the kind of stuff I would need to probably like really delve into this stuff, because I'm not the most technically sound person, but also I'm very lazy. So it's like, if something is not easy, then I'm just like, I got so many other games I can just plug and play. So, but I'm very appreciative of the people that put in this hard work. A lot of them doing it for no financial gain whatsoever.
Yeah,
and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of people benefit from their work. So
no, it's super cool, super cool. It's a great device. Like, definitely would advise people to grab one, like whenever it's going to come out next year. But hopefully for you, it's like sooner rather than later. I wonder what's going on in that space. But
we'll see. All right, well, that was the last news segment, and to keep things tight this week, we're not doing a big sizzler. We'll probably bring it back next week, depending on how busy it is. But I think we really just wanted to catch up on those stories that we missed last week, and obviously cover the big ones from this week. So, Integot, how's your next week going? What you got anything planned for next week for gaming wise, or?
I'm just gonna keep cracking at Last of Us. I might not talk about it too much next week because I reckon it will take me a couple of weeks to finish it. So
those games aren't that long, though, are they? I know you're a
I
very
don't play
busy
that.
man.
Well,
I know you're a very, very busy man, but you put 50 hours into bloody Splatoon.
I know. I had a friend stay over, and he's like, "Oh, I don't game," and then like literally a couple of hours later, he was in my living room with a gaming laptop set up, headset. He was playing online, like a MOBA thing or whatever. I'm like, fucking don't game. You're like got the most crazy portable setup I've ever seen.
Well, there's some people that argue MOBAs aren't games, but
shots fired.
No, I have nothing against MOBAs.
Yeah, look, like I think I'm actually going to start to. I mean, with Splatoon 3, I've 100%ed the single player campaign, and dude, the fucking like I don't want to spoil anything, but there's like some extra post game stuff, and it's freaking crazy. It's like the difficulty curve is like exponential. I was like,
It's kind of like Mario Odyssey.
no, dude, it's way crazier than that.
Really?
Yes, and I've
Some of those
completed
Mario
that.
Odyssey, like end game
Yeah,
levels.
I finished everything in Mario Odyssey, and that's exactly what I thought about. I was like, this is like that on steroids. This is like more like Galaxy 2, with the one that's the perfect run. The final thing, it's like 20 minutes long, right? Every other part of Splatoon is like 3 minutes. This goes on forever, and it's so freaking hard. There was points where I was like, I don't know if I can beat this, man. Like, I don't know if I'm good enough to beat this freaking thing.
Did you beat it?
Yeah. But I was like, you're gonna think I'm nuts, but honestly, it was like Dark Souls, man, for me. I was like, this is freaking hard. Like, I could imagine, because Octo Expansion is really hard. I think Octo Expansion on average is the hardest campaign that they've done. So the Splatoon 2 DLC. But just quickly, like the single player of Splatoon 3, the way they balanced it is great. Like in Splatoon 2, you beat the whole thing and then they're like, okay, now every single level, beat it with every single weapon class. It's like, what? Like, why? It's stupid. Like, it pissed me off. It actually really annoyed me about the single player campaign. Whereas this one, it's like, they'll say like maybe one weapon, or like some levels they'll be like 2 weapons you can beat it with, right? And it doesn't matter if you do it or not for 100%. But even me, I'm like, I might go back and beat all those levels and fill in all those like blanks. I went crazy, man. I did everything in this game. Like, but I think I'll ease off after the Splatfest. Because I've been playing like every night. Like, it's a freaking cool game, man. It's fucking really cool. It's just such a shame there's so many issues with the multiplayer. Like, I literally have had like 3 or 4 disconnects in the whole time I've played Rocket League. It's like 700 hours. This game's like 50 hours. I've had like, no joke, like 50 disconnects. Like, it's freaking bad, man. It's really bad.
Well, next week I will be playing 2 games. One that I've had for a while, which is Still Rising. That unfortunately there were a couple of bugged achievements and stuff that they've since patched. So I'll be starting Still Rising, which I'm super looking forward to. So I'll talk about that next week. And I will likely be playing a game called Dragon Prana, which, if you think back to our Chemco tier list, what was one of the most memorable things you remember about the tier list?
Like that, I clipped all the footage and then it looked the same every freaking game. Like, it's panning in, panning in, panning in.
One of the most memorable
The wall?
things for me,
I remember the wall.
One of the most memorable things, the wall, for me was when we talked about the 8-bit style Game Gear RPGs that are too zoomed in.
Yeah.
So this Dragon Prana is part of that series, so it's also another
okay.
zoomed-in game. So we'll see whether or not I actually am able to get past that next week.
You will.
So,
you will.
I will get past it, as in get past it to enjoy the game, because those games were pretty low down on the tier list. So,
Shit, man. No, I'm just looking at the forward calendar of games and stuff like that on IGN. Friggin' Overwatch 2 is coming out in a couple of weeks. Shit, man. That's really wild to me. Like, that game's journey of, like, being so hyped, and then I feel like all the hype out of that game is left.
well, also, and I could get this info wrong, but you know, the fact that you, as part of the battle pass, because it's a free to play game now, that some of the heroes are unlocked as part of the battle pass. So I think some people aren't happy with that change. But look, the people that aren't happy with that change will very quickly unlock all the bloody heroes they need to play as, because, you know, they're going to play the game. So, but yeah, look, there's just no buzz at all about Overwatch 2. There really isn't.
No, it's so weird. Like, for a game, Overwatch freaking won Game of the Year when it came out. Not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. And for this to have, like, almost negative buzz is so weird. So weird. But I just wanted to quickly say, fuck, man. These publishers can shove it. Like, there's been hardly any games coming out, right? Like, realistically. Like, and we're not, like, the craziest people of playing, like, every single new AAA, AA game that's coming out every week, right? It's not really what the show's about. But, you know, late October, it's ridiculous, man. It's like, Mario and Rabbids comes out on October 20. Then Gotham Knights comes out the next day on the 21st. Then Persona 5 Royale comes out on the Switch, which I'm like, oh, I'm almost tempted to get that on that.
Don't forget, October the 6th, Priest Simulator comes out.
Bayonetta 3 comes out a week later. Then Ragnarok is like a week and a bit after that. And then, of course, Skull and Bones comes out. Fully paid game. Man, it's like that little window is going to be horrible. Like, I actually am looking at it and going, shit, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I'll play Mario Rabbids. I love that game, the first game, so much. I might cancel my order for Gotham Knights now.
There's a lot of games, and there's a lot of games being added to the Game Pass because I've been tracking that, of course. And, almost too many games, one could argue.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I feel like I'll play Mario Rabbids. I might actually try to, like, push through it so then I can play Bayonetta 3. Then I'll feel pressured to push through that because I want to be free for, like, God of War Ragnarok.
And bloody Star Ocean comes out on October 27th. So I keep forgetting that game even, like, exists, and I'm looking forward to it, you know?
Luckily, one thing, though, I do have a Bucks weekend. I probably won't be able to do the show that weekend. The weekend before Ragnarok comes out. So at least it doesn't F me up in that way. Because if that game came out and then I'm like gone for that long weekend or whatever, I'd be like, damn, that's a shame. But yeah. But no,
Cool.
It's forecasting. The month, it's going to start picking up like crazy again.
Forecast says rainy game days. Lots of them.
And by the way, I've already titled this show. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I did not see anything.
I called it Various Day Life.
You know what? On that note, that game, I didn't even realize that game's like been out for ages.
Yeah, I know.
No, but it's been like out
No, I
like,
know.
on mobile and
I
stuff.
know.
So Various Day Life is a very fun name.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Cool.
thanks everybody, and that's it for the show. And we'll look forward to hopefully hearing my impressions about Steel Rising next week.
Awesome.
Other than that,